Let me call to order the Ways and Means Committee meeting for January 6, 2026 for the town of Keel Island. And I would, after calling it to order, I would ask for the roll call.
Chairman Farrell.
Here.
Mayor Bell.
Here.
Mr. Spencer.
Here.
Ms. Tillerson. Here. Ms. Schubert. Here.
All right, the first order of business is the approval of minutes from December 5th meeting. Any edits or changes or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I had made a few clarification or typo edits, mostly related to names, and given those to the clerk.
Okay, I have a couple of those too that I will send to you also. With that, we'll consider the amendments approved. Citizen comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business, which there's none of. New business, and I'm going to change the order in which we do this. We'll do the review of the fee schedule first, but I think it makes sense to do the monthly budget report to give some context before we do the mid-fiscal year review. And so we'll do those in that order if everybody's okay with that. And with that change, we'll move on to review and recommendation to the Town Council, the amendment to the planning fee schedule for the Design Review Board. Mr. Taylor?
Yes. So what's before you, members of the committee, is a request to amend our fee schedule. The planning staff is recommending, with your approval, of Town Council's approval of establishing a design review board for the town, to amend our planning fee schedule that would allow administrative applications for review. And so you'll see under the fee schedule, section L, which is design review board, a number of fees that's been proposed to be added. These are coupled or categorized rather in based on the category type of, based on the use type. So there's single family, multifamily, and commercial. And the fees escalate based upon the scope and scale of those particular uses. In preparing these particular recommendations for values, we looked at comparable communities as well as what the overall cost would be for the permitting package we're going through planning and zoning. And so for an example, what we did was choose a standard 20,000 square foot commercial building. That particular project and review timeline would go through site plan review as the initial stage. Right now, based on that size of 20,000 square feet, a $500 fee would be for site plan review. And then this being pursuant to go before the design review board, a cost of $1,500. And then their application for their actual zoning permit would be $100. And so in aggregate, you're looking at approximately $2,000 for a permit for a commercial building regarding planning and zoning fees with the now established design review board. If there are questions, I can entertain any particular questions.
Any questions for Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Chairman, I would just note I had a conversation with the planning director and it's a conversation we've had previously about plan review fees and building department fees, zoning review fees generally is kind of, what are we trying to achieve? What's the purpose? Because you don't generate enough in fees to cover the cost and time associated with that. It's not really a meaningful revenue source. It's kind of non-material, but nonetheless, this is a fairly standard fee schedule consistent with other municipalities. We talked about this. I believe the planning department looked at, particularly with regard to design review board fees, compared to other jurisdictions as well that have statutory design review boards. I did ask a question about, we do have a slightly higher fee for design review board than for site plan review, and the planning director indicated that's because that's a more involved review process. So I was satisfied with those. The only question I really have at this juncture, and I hadn't focused on this previously, John, is you're lining out the landscape and tree preservation board fees. The question I would have is that premature, given the fact that I know the intention is to combine the two, but that hasn't happened yet.
But great point. What I would then recommend is in your recommendation, maybe say at sort of a trigger point upon and it's to not having this come back before you, just upon trigger point of the Landscape and Tree Preservation Board being dissolved, then these fees also would be dissolved. I think that would be an amenable recommendation to move forward.
Because the Landscape and Tree Preservation Board work would be
Yeah, right now,
rolled
they're-
into this.
Correct, yes.
And so we wouldn't have to come back and then also, although it wouldn't, could do everything at one time, but I get the point that rather than worrying about coming back and amending the fee schedule again, we can simply, include I guess, a footnote, fee schedule notes, adding a number 7, leave in the variance and appeals fees, but those fees would be deleted or removed upon the dissolution by ordinance of the Tree Preservation Board.
Can we do that by asterisk and a footnote? Is that okay? And I would have it, if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, have it say, at the dissolving of the Tree Preservation Board or January 1st, 2027, whichever comes first. So,
Well, if we haven't, we still want those fees in there if we haven't dissolved.
Yeah, just for context,
Yeah.
that recommendation is going before consideration for that is going for Planning Commission tomorrow to amend our zoning code that would eliminate the Tree Preservation Board out of the ordinance. And so that would essentially come back to Town Council if that recommendation moves forth tomorrow at our February meeting. So just from a timing standpoint, that caveat of,
I think it's going to happen pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
The recommendation is to, combine the work of the Design Review Board and the Tree Preservation Board. And if that is the recommendation, in conjunction with that, the ordinance provisions that establish the Tree Preservation Board would be deleted or repealed.
Well, if it's going to come back tomorrow,
No. It's the Planning Commission is going to make a recommendation tomorrow that'll come back to council.
was 2 months going to be worth a footnote, or?
I think my
I would
earlier comment
also-
was just as part of your recommendation, leaving, so essentially maybe your recommendation excludes the elimination of the Landscape and Tree Preservation Board from being removed from the fee schedule today. But the recommendation would say at the moment, Town Council or in their future decides that this would automatically come out of the fee schedule.
There is the potential for in the next 30 days or 60 days
An
for
application or
something to
something.
come before the
Yeah.
tree, for a permit to be required for tree removal for some property. And until we've actually formalized the process of combining those, we still need to have the Tree Preservation Board in place and have all its provisions relevant.
Okay. I mean, we said earlier the fees were de minimis, and
Yeah.
so now we're just debating whether we keep de minimis fees or get rid of de minimis fees today. So, okay, it's not worth discussing anymore. I agree with the footnote.
Well, I mean, maybe to your point, I guess you're right. We could, if we just simply kept that deletion, it would just simply mean that there were no fees associated with a
The
variance
next
or
60 to
appeal.
90 days. Yeah.
I guess I,
Just don't put a time frame in it, just put it
no,
on the
what
trigger point.
what the chairman is suggesting, he's right, is if I hadn't spoken up when we had just passed this today and deleted it, there would no longer be fees associated with the variance and appeals for tree preservation. If that happened to arise, then there just wouldn't be a fee associated with
It'd
it.
still be a review, but just not a fee.
Yeah.
I don't care either. There's 3 options. I don't care any of them, but I'm just tweaking the mayor. If it's de minimis, why don't you just delete it?
So perhaps, given what is anticipated to be coming before and I don't know if we have a sense of the council as to whether we'd accept the Planning Commission's recommendations, at least of this body, when they come before us to combine the 2 entities. If that's the expectation, then I would kind of withdraw my proposed amendment and just accept the staff recommendations as proposed.
that a formal motion?
Yes, that is the motion to,
Will you restate it?
simply to approve the planned fee schedule modifications as before us.
Which modification?
What is before us?
What's in print?
Yeah.
Only what's in print.
So what's in the tab?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, second.
Okay,
Any further discussion of this de minimis issue?
okay.
Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion is passed with a lot of fun. Wish we had that much fun with all of our motions. The next issue is going to be the monthly budget report.
Yes, thank you.
I had it right.
So I have the 5 months through November, and as of end of November, we have collected about 7.6 million in revenues, which is about 43% of the total budgeted revenues, and about 700,000 more than collected last year through the first 5 months. All the revenues look pretty much within expectations. I'm projecting that the business licenses and the building permits, we're gonna actually end up more than what we budgeted. And as far as the expenditures, we spent 4.7 million, which is about 31% of the total expenditures for this year. And they're pretty much in line with the budget and or under the budget and compared to last year. So with that, I want to point out for a few possible savings or items that we may end up under the budget for the remaining of the year. And the first one, I'm just going to change that spreadsheet to the other one. To the budget spreadsheet.
Yep.
So the first one is the personnel cost. We can have a potential savings or under budget amount of $140,000, and this is related to the fact that in a budget we have a placeholder of $75,000 for a resiliency officer, and we budgeted we had a placeholder of 6% for salaries increases and adjustment, and there is 33,000 less than what's in the budget was actually allocated. So depending on the directions of the council and the mayor, if we want to hire that person or not, or have that position still this year, we'll still have savings of half of that amount because we budgeted, for the full year. Another item.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, and for the benefit of Councilmember Spencer, it's my expectation that future staffing related issues or needs will be something that we'll discuss at the strategic planning meeting later this week. There had been a previous discussion of a potential chief resiliency officer, whether that's a reallocated position or a new position is one question. At some point in time, we've mentioned that once the new wing is completed, then we may need to augment building and facilities management capabilities. We're in some discussions right now vis-a-vis contract negotiations with Barrier Island Ocean Rescue as to, community service / code enforcement responsibilities, and whether we want to contract all of that out or whether we want to internalize some of that. None of those are going to substantially move the needle, but those are things that we'll want to discuss. But none of that is, even if we would move forward on everything, which is not the case, we're only talking about, a potential impact, a modest impact on the current fiscal year.
So another line item is the administration and operation that we can potentially we end up lower about $270,000, and this is mostly related to few items. In the original budget we put some placeholders for a number of items, and so first is we have $50,000 for those events that are organized by the town that are outside of the Arts Council, and to date we spent 11,000. So based on some few more coming up this year, but we're gonna end up less than 50,000. So there is 35,000 potentially less. About 100,000 in maintenance cost. And that is because when we budgeted, we used the estimate for the lowest bidder. At the time, we were actually choosing a landscaping company, and we end up saving almost 100,000 than the lowest bidder with the first round of landscaping. And we have 480 for legal services. We only spent 150 to date, and we also have 80,000 in prepaid legal from insurance company that I'm expecting to get sometime soon because I submitted from last year. So I feel like we'll end up about 100,000 less than what we have in the budget.
And on that, I'm a little bit actually surprised by that number. There's some
Legal,
what's that?
the legal or the?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There's some variability around that. Part of the reason, I'm careful how I say this, but part of the reason those legal expenses are less than they might have been is it's been simply difficult to get the lawyers to actually focus on things and do some of the work that has been needed. Depending on what happens with regard to pending litigation regarding Sam Spit, some of the matters that are on the agenda for executive session later today, franchise-related issues, Seabrook Island Utility, development agreement, and other things. There could be a significant expenditure, but I suspect we would still end up less than was budgeted.
And like I said, some of the items are eligible for reimbursement from our insurance companies because we purchase prepaid legal for 80,000.
Talk about what that is.
So our insurance, the state insurance offers this option for, it's included in your liability insurance. It's up to $20,000 of legal expenses, reimbursement of it. So every case that is filed against the town, I submit to them. They reject it. They're not going to represent us, but it usually qualifies for reimbursement. So we currently had, last year we had, I think, 3 cases that were qualified for that. And I submitted all the invoices, but we haven't received that money yet. So we're going to get that money from last year. And there is 1 case this year that is already in process that they rejected. They're not going to represent us, but we can file for reimbursement. And we purchase additional, 20,000 is free, and we purchase additional 80,000 that cost, I think, like 10,000. That was worth it.
Okay.
And additional
Would
saving.
they reject, why would they reject this?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
So what did the state choose not to represent us on, and why did they choose
Oh, they
not?
always do that. I think it's just, there is really no explanation. It's, I get a standard
I'm
letter.
sure what matter this is that we're referring to.
Yeah, just give one example of what they
So this one is the trust. What is the recent one? Like a couple months ago, there is one.
About the BZA, the appeal, or talking about the CNT?
Yeah.
The BZA, which was the hearing that the BZA denied a
okay.
applicant, and so they appealed it. The applicant appeals it.
I'm sorry.
The Board of Zoning Appeals.
What issue was it?
I don't remember, John would have to say, it was,
It's a
was a-
property in
was it a
Blue
variance?
Heron Pond. It was a zoning, the issue was identified as a zoning violation because of HVAC equipment that went beyond
Okay.
the,
So that went to court?
well,
They're
the
appealing it.
BZA, the homeowner appealed to
Appeal.
the BZA
Yep.
for a variance that was denied, and so they appealed to circuit court
Court.
as they are allowed to do pursuant to state statute. And so that matter
so we're
is-
still in that process. So
but,
when we.
but I
are-
believe they requested
They
mediation.
did. So then the process is that our attorneys take it up. Once we receive that information, we send it off just to see if they would
Okay.
take it. So we went through that. And I
Yeah.
think also last year, there were some building-related matters dealing with, I think some foundation or something.
That's
Have to Go
good.
back
No,
and look,
it's-
but.
Yeah,
That-
so
that's-
because our liability, it's for the director, for you, for council, the mayor, and building official, and,
But that is not, just be clear, that is not a lawsuit that involves
Oh, yeah.
seeking damages. This is simply trying to negotiate, whether.
Relief.
Correct.
Relief, whether in fact the court would agree that they could leave it where it is on the side or mediate. What was proposed, as you may recall, was to build at the ground level equipment rather than have it stuck up on the side of the house. The immediate adjacent property owner said he was fine with that. There were other property owners in the neighborhood that objected, and BZA ended up rejecting the application. Where it's going to land,
Okay.
but there is legal cost,
legal
because
cost,
MAC
I'm
has to
yeah.
represent us, so, yes. So, and the next item here in the operation is the travel and training. It's just based on what we spent to date. We probably gonna spend 33,000 less than what's in the budget. Another item is the consulting services are projected about 156,000 lower than budget, and this relates to pretty much the timing, because we budgeted number of consulting engagements, mostly for planning department, such as zoning ordinance update and stormwater management review, GIS shapefile mapping. We budgeted all for this year. Some of those projects, actually, the stormwater management review, it started, but it's less than what we anticipated. And the zoning ordinance update may start later than we anticipated. So it may defer for next year, or partially the cost will be this year and the rest next year. And that's also, I think it's something that will be discussed at the strategic meeting, one of those projects. The biggest saving or in the budget is for the public safety resources. How we budgeted, as we had pretty much the same as the coverage last year when we had a contract with the Charleston County deputies, and we had coverage for 2 deputies every day pretty much, with some additional for the weekends. Right now we're using a different model, and based on the same strategy of having a deputy for 8 hours for 3 to 4 days per week. Until the end of the year, we should see about 600,000 lower in the cost than we had last year and what we had budgeted. With that too, you will see, because
I want to thank you, Dorota. Just for benefit of my fellow council members, Mr. Chairman, we've had some discussion of this. This is still an ongoing and evolving relationship. Yep. As you may recall, we had a 24/7, 2-deputy contracted relationship with Charleston County Sheriff's Office. That contract, that particular contract was terminated by the Sheriff's Office. Or did it simply run its course? She terminated, no, that was for on duty. But then we had a separate off-duty
annual.
that,
Different
it
Nor- as
expired,
normal.
but
Yeah.
the new sheriff indicated that was no longer interested in continuing that form of contract, nor are we, frankly, because all those deputies were actually on our payroll, which created a whole set of issues. I mean, liability issues, retirement cost issues, et cetera.
issues, yeah.
What the new deputy, what the new sheriff required is that contracting deputies for off-duty coverage would be only through this extra duty solutions. As you may recall, I discussed that there was no real negotiation on that. The rate simply went from $55 an hour to $75 an hour, kind of unilaterally imposed, which otherwise would have substantially increased our cost. There were other issues that we were,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, it seemed like maybe my memory's wrong. I thought the old one at 55 expired, we offered a new one at 72 or 75. There was no conversation, and then they came in at $91 an hour.
well, it was a 90-some all in, $75 an hour for essentially the deputy, and then there was some vehicle charges and
$11.
something else. We did offer kind of an all in, and that was rejected. I mean, it was just, they simply, there were a host of issues there. Bottom line is we are paying, and even that 55 was $10 or more, I think, than had been the case the prior year. It had been raised at one point in time. We're paying substantially more on an hourly rate. There was also an issue with regard to particularly some of the nighttime coverage. We started looking at issues related to
Where they were and what
where
they
they
were
were, and certain deputies billing essentially double full-time. And so then we just stepped back. And this was my decision to say, let's kind of test out this relationship. Is all we were doing initially is 2 shifts on weekends. And that's all, not the overnight shift. Oh, and it was also the sheriff had represented that under his leadership, we would have more regular duty coverage.
Right.
In this, we would experience better service.
He was campaigning.
Yeah. Well, and he represented that afterwards as well. And
As
we've
part of
seen-
their normal course of business.
Yeah, and we've seen that sporadically where you do have, when they did the traffic enforcement out there, we requested that was all regular duty. We didn't pay for that. That was just part of their service.
I saw a deputy come in as I was coming out today.
So today, I'm not
Pay.
sure, today's not one we're paying for, is it? I thought this was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
This week?
Yeah, I think so. So anyway, where we are right now, in the continued evolution, turns out I've talked to several of the deputies. I sit there and get out of the car and talk to them. Off-season, not much reason to be paying for a deputy during the day on Sunday. There's just not much going on, no contractors working on the island, et cetera. They just sit there and say they send us the report every day and nothing happening. And unfortunately, we yet can't get them to do traffic enforcement or speed enforcement, which is a continued issue. What we're trying now is to maintain a little bit more visibility, still on Fridays and Saturdays, but also alternate weeks, Mondays and Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays, to have some visibility during the day shift.
And we still can't direct where they go and what they do, right?
Well, I mean, if you simply said, we are going to have an event here, and we need to have sheriffs, we want to, off-duty coverage to cover the 2 hours an event here, or when the resort, says the marathon, they're directing what they should be doing and where they should be on the island. Here's what they should be focused on. Here, so we can't tell them. It's a good question. This is still part of the issue, because what we've said is what we want you to do is focus on patrolling the public areas of the town, because Kika separately occasionally contracts with sheriff's office for traffic enforcement behind the gate, because
Yeah, understood.
sheriff's office cannot enforce traffic restrictions on private roads unless specifically authorized by the owner. We haven't specifically authorized that because we're not the owner of those roads, but we said patrol here, do speed enforcement here, and obviously if they get a call, they have to respond to call wherever it is, and that's fine. So there's still this ongoing, I have conversations every week about, okay, I go around Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, do my multiple loops. I don't see sheriff, what they're doing. And Stephanie will make the point, well, they're kind of bored, so they're just patrolling around the island. Okay. So it's a continuing and evolving kind of relationship, and we're testing it out as we go.
I think the word you're looking for is saga, continuing saga.
And they are here this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We have
So
them.
today, if you saw them, they were
Probably
just
Kika.
on
It might have
regular
been, it might have
duty.
been Kika or their regular duties.
Or just
Just
regular
regular
duty,
duty.
because regular duty still does patrol in this area.
Okay.
So with all this
Yeah.
said, if we continue like this, we'll see some significant savings in the budget amount. And since 75% of this amount is funded from state tax, state accommodation tax, you will see the, that money there too, that we can carry over to next year.
And I'm sorry to belabor this, but did you say that Seabrook is paying the $91 or the new rate or they have a different rate than we do?
We were told that, and in fact, I think it was Kika told us, well,
Yeah.
the town agreed to this new rate, or like we negotiated or
Yeah.
agreed to, which
Right.
we really hadn't. And so I believe it was imposed on
Kika
at
and the
least
resort,
Kika. I'm not-
and the resort.
And the resort. I'm not sure about Seabrook, but I'm assuming so, although we did check that it's not, we're paying a higher rate than at least another one or two other municipalities were, Folly Beach, Sullivan's, or IOP, I can't remember.
Yeah, and of course, they said some of that's because they have their own police department, they're supplementing some of the services. Don't know, but that's.
Yeah, so, a differential rate.
Understand.
And it, what it comes across of, like so many other things, it's the Kiowa premium.
Yep. Thank you. Rod, anything else?
By the way, I should just note, we have zero issues getting people to fill. Have we had any unfilled slots?
No, we have not had an issue having those slots filled at the $84 or so rate.
Just a few more items. So one of the increases actually from the original budget is a 50,000 increase in charitable contributions that was just discussed last meeting, town council meeting, where the council gave directions to increase the amount for 50,000.
From 200 to 250.
Correct.
Yep.
We do have a contingency of 100,000 in the budget, but since we're projecting a lot of savings, I don't foresee we're going to be expending that money. And finally, capital outlay. It's projected about $216,000 less than the budget, and it's a net reduction. This net reduction is and multiple items, or two items pretty much reflect that. So we budgeted $300,000 for $200 for the new wing modification and $100 for possible office modifications. We were thinking of maybe possibly adding some cubicles or moving the public works to the garage and making garage offices. I don't think we're going to do that this year, so we'll have 100,000 in
In this fiscal year.
this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Yes. So there is some savings there. However, the anticipated cost for this year for this wing is actually higher than 200,000. We have the estimated draws for the soft cost, and I want to say it's like 3 something. So, but the net is 93 increase in building related item, and we had number of placeholders for the infrastructure projects. We had 250,000 for patching Beach Walker and Parkway that we thinking that would be better to defer to later after the construction of the Ocean Pine project is completed. And also we had some money for enhancements on Betsy Carrison and some work on the bridge that we don't know that if it's going to happen this fiscal year. So with all this, we probably end up like $1.4 million less than we anticipated or budgeted last.
My experience in government elsewhere is agencies will generally try to do a lot of expenditures, find a lot of ways to spend money at the end of the years to meet the budgets. So there's no reduction going forward. That's not quite how we've operated. We don't spend money just to spend money, but that will help inform the future budget, but will not necessarily be dispositive of that. I'd like to ask Councilmember Spencer an issue because we'll need to plan for this potentially in 2026. Dorota mentioned Beach Walker Drive. I don't know if, I suspect you've noticed as I have, is that the condition of Beach Walker Drive has continued to deteriorate. I mean, it's pretty wavy little with a lot of heavy trucks constantly on that. It's a double-edged sword in some respects. It actually slows down traffic a little bit, but
trucks, but
yeah, but but they makes more noise when they're going over it. I mean, I think probably the most prudent thing is simply to wait till the end of the Ocean Pines project to be able to redo Beach Walker Drive. I'm not even sure if it's worth doing any additional kind of patchwork or leveling out in the interim.
Say only if it's a safety issue.
And it's really, we had one little washout area that we had to quickly wash, but that's, I suspect that's probably, since that project's not going to be expected to be completed until the end of
Ocean Pines?
Yeah, 27?
27,
Yeah, so it's not even going to be a fiscal, coming fiscal year budget item.
And we can review that at any time
Yeah.
if the road deteriorates significantly.
And again, we are in the extraordinarily fortunate position. I'll talk about this both at the town hall as well as strategic planning meeting. Is we are in an extraordinarily fortunate position. We actually have the dollars to fix things if we need to do so. One of the rhetorical points I'll make is the county and city have been struggling mightily to come up with $7.5 million. They finally identified it to build the third lane, the second lane off Johns Island across the Stono River Bridge. Just shows how unique our position is we literally can write a check and say, guys, here's the $7.5 million. They don't have that capability. They've got to find funding sources or revenue sources for things like that. And, you could almost ask the question, gee, is it worth it to Kiawah Island folks to not be stuck in the hour-long trek into Charleston? I bet you some people would say yes.
if you can even get there with the River Road and
Well,
Maybank
yes, yeah.
bottleneck that's building and building.
I would venture to guess that the other side of that coin, though, is there's a ton of maintenance that Charleston County does, and they could do deferred maintenance and shift that maintenance money to do that if they really wanted to. There's places they could shift it from. given the size of their budget.
So I should bring in, I'm planning to meet with Councilmember Boykin, and we're going to get a few folks together, because I've made that some point. They're saying there's no maintenance. There are very, very little maintenance budget, and almost their entire roads budget is dependent upon the transportation sales tax.
But my point is, there's timing issues with other monies, there's places where you can change money around, given the size of their budget. 750,000 to do one lane of something that
$7.5
seems.
million.
Oh, 7.5 million. Even that seems, in the scope of their budget, be something they could accomplish.
I would think so too, yeah.
You would think, but that's been the
political will
the big-
versus-
that's been kind of the gating, one of the gating items for that project. Supposedly, the money has now been identified, whether it's the monies that were not expended on the Mark Clark project of 526 extension or elsewhere is not entirely clear, but supposedly that's going forward. I forward you, and I may have him come to present at our strategic planning meeting, Councilmember Jim
That'd be
McBride,
great.
because he did a presentation just focused on the roads infrastructure and related issues in and around Johns Island, which impacts all of us very much.
I guess my reaction of the additional lane on the bridge, as you know, I drive into Charleston all the time. My
Yeah.
daughter's in there, and all kinds of times a day. I don't typically have issue there. I have issue other places.
You don't get backed up going across past off of Maybank, on Maybank across?
Getting past River Road, yes, but.
Yeah,
then-
that,
But once I get past River Road after the merge.
after the merge, but the reason is the merge is there would be no merge if the idea is to extend that second lane.
I guess maybe I'm diluted by DC traffic, but I get through there pretty efficiently typically.
There's certain times.
Depending
where
what time you're
it'll-
going. If you're going in the
Times.
afternoon,
I mean,
horrible.
I've been, when I've had to go downtown occasionally on meetings, it's an extra half an hour.
Now, if I'm coming on Maybank from Bohicket, it's backed up for a mile. But I always go River Road and I turn in and I'm through it pretty quickly.
You're talking
Depending
about River
what
Road
time.
to Maybank?
Uh-huh.
We're talking Bohicket and then Main Road up to 17.
No, I'm talking
you're
about
talking
the what has been identified is already a fail and going to get much worse. And in fact, you look to Johns Island Advocate today is another 250 home development right off of River just above Maybank.
I saw that.
Is that
250 units.
yeah, that intersection is like the worst in the county.
I agree with that.
And getting worse. Now, as soon as you get past the merge, it's not bad. The problem is that merge and backing up on Maybank and sometimes downriver
Yeah.
can be pretty extensive.
Like I said, I usually go down River and I look down at Maybank and I'm like, geez, don't go that way.
Digressing.
But I was going to say this, we start thinking about competing priorities. I think about the land bank idea also.
Yep.
And what's more meaningful, impactful to Kiowa. I think there's a couple things that we would need to think through on that.
Dorada, I had a question about, I know we talked about getting a schedule from the architects about payments.
and I sent it to you this morning.
Great, okay, thank you. We're trying, I don't know if you know, I asked her to get an estimate based on the
Yes.
architect's knowledge of
Yep.
what an expenditure
draw,
pattern
yep.
would look like for
Yep.
this year, okay. And the other thing, unless you can talk about this, is can you talk about business licenses and the reason for the excess? Is it number of licenses or is it fee change?
So, no, the fees are not effective until February 1st. So we'll see them for next fiscal year and remainder of this fiscal. But, so there were few big projects that, one-time fee that we collected money on, that this is not ongoing thing. And
So is that
It's a
permit, building permit, or business license?
business licenses.
Business license are one-time project?
Well, so, no, but, there's a number of businesses that are regular on the island.
Yeah.
All the landscapers, regular construction. But if we have a one-time big project like Seafields actually made up a difference. Because they originally, when they apply for a business license, they apply on the original contract. It ended up being more, so they paid a difference.
But that's a construction, that's a building permit fee.
No, that's
Business
both.
license as
This is
well.
both. They had to do it for business licenses and for building permits.
Okay,
They
but I
made them-
thought the big number was associated with the building permit fees. The business
Correct.
license fees is
Correct.
just a
I'm
small
just saying,
percent.
explaining
Okay.
why is the difference. Then the not this. What is a Cape? Like the sales from Cape, or like sales for
The new restaurant at the Cape? Yeah.
correct. And so if this is something, no, real estate sales, they finished they sold everything, so they closed out the license, the real estate company, not the Keo Island real estate, but they were using some
West.
other developer or a brokerage, so they closed the license. So there was like 200,000 additional or one-time revenue that we received in August when they closed the license.
They were using a different, it's the first I've heard about that. Different.
So the real estate was, I can't remember the name of the company, but they were using, or
You're talking about East-West Partners, was using someone different?
it was an East,
Well,
I
East-West was the
can look
owner,
up,
but
but
the
anyhow,
broker-
there was
All the
some-
real estate sales were going through Kiwa Island Real Estate.
Well, let me look into
Okay.
it before I say something, but there was there is a company, there was a brokerage that actually closed the license. They had an open license, maybe, I don't know what was the relationship of real estate, but it was like $200,000 in one-time revenue that we received in business licenses, hence it's higher because of those one-time payments that we normally don't budget for it, and my department is continuously working on enforcement, and we actually caught a lot of businesses that didn't have licenses. Those are small amounts that they bring in, but it all adds up, so that's why there is higher.
Okay, because this is, if we could just follow up on this offline, because
Sure.
this is like almost $500,000.
Yeah,
So
of that-
300,000 more other than,
But yeah, I can tell you, so there is like 3 big projects that contributed mostly for that amount.
fields, a brokerage, and then something else.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nothing that's material for me.
No?
Thank you, that was
Okay,
a great
thank you.
review.
I just want to, for my update, I just want to say, and I know that the mayor and the chairman, they already had a chance to see that internal control assessment. I hope the Councilman Spencer had a chance to look at that report too, because we'll have a presentation today at the town council meeting, and we completed the assessment.
Thank you. And we've received public comment on it too.
Well, I actually responded to that, but I responded to the first email, and the first email did not go to you all because her first email had included all the .org addresses. So I'm not sure if my response got through to you. And we'll talk about this at the time, but we'll reiterate this. One of the findings was with regard to credit cards. It was not deemed to be material. We need to tighten up our processes for a particularly good reason, because she was equating prior past financial malfeasance with credit cards, but in this case, there had been restrictions put in, limits on each of the credit cards. So other than mine and the Mayor Pro Tem's that exist for emergency purposes, the highest limit on any one card is the town administrator's of $5,000, down to $1,000 for the director of the Public Works Department. There's just not, even if it's misused,
You're not going to get rich off
Not
that.
material.
yeah, it just doesn't move the needle in any way. Not to say we shouldn't still have, and we're putting into place, and Dorota will be able to talk about this, better procedures, but there's a reason why it was stated as non-material.
And she had to her credit, for whatever reason, had a real sensitivity about credit cards. And she sort of understood how we use them, what we use them for, kind of the documentation, and there's places where we can improve. But I think it's fair to say she had a real sensitivity because of other organizations, either more credit cards or higher limits or less procedures in place. She spent a lot of time on that.
Well, and I will have to have a slightly better procedure than we do now because mine is the biggest limit. And there've been a couple of instances in which we needed to do expenditures that exceeded the limits for anybody else. So I've had to use mine for non-emergency. And it's not me putting in the card number. It's typically Dorota or the town administrator. I think in one case it was the communications director. But I'm told of the purpose and
And I think she was comfortable when she understood that it came back to you and you got the invoice and explained to you what it was and you saw it, so you ultimately became responsible for it. But it gave the audit committee a really good education in thinking about kind of controls very deep into the weeds. And so it was a good exercise, but at the end of the day, it became something we viewed as important but non-material in terms of financial risk. Anything else? Did you want to do the mid-year review?
that was kind of,
Got it all? Okay. Okay. Chairman's report, I don't have anything to say, or I'll save it for the town council meeting, other than to say that I think the audit committee felt really, really pleased with kind of doing the work for the assessment of the financial controls and then kind of the outcome. And importantly, her engagement and her willingness to, take feedback and adjust it as appropriate. And again, I would say for the record that she was incredibly pleased overall with our controls and where we were and our financial standing. So it was a good exercise. We're pleased that we did it, and hopefully the whole council will be too. Anything else from you? Citizen comments? Committee member comments? With that, we'll adjourn